Hello, ho, ho, boys.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Santa!
What do you want?
I'm afraid you've made my naughty list. You didn't put out an episode last month, and that makes Santa very, very angry.
You're not Santa.
But he has the suit. Don't listen to him, Santa.
Quiet, Bert.
Not even close.
Now, I was just going to fire all of you, but frankly, that's a lot of paperwork, and since one of the reindeer ain't the only pen I own, I decided to keep you on.
How very generous of you.
But you won't be getting paid.
You don't pay us anyway.
Quiet, Terrence.
Not even close.
And I'm locking you in here until you produce me an appropriately festive-themed episode.
Wait, let me come with you. I want to pet the reindeer, and I want to meet the elves, and I want to deliver presents. And is that a real beard? Can I sit on your lap? What is Lapland like? Can I come? Can I?
Say, you know how to perform exorcisms, right?
Oh, yeah, there was that whole thing with Steven and the Neo Geo.
I don't need details. Some guy I used to work with, who I'm almost certain I had killed, told me I was going to get a visit from 3 ghosts. And Santa needs to send those ghosts directly back to hell when they arrive. You're hired.
Oh, boy!
The rest of you get to work. Santa out.
What?
Well, shit. Ryan isn't here. How are we going to make an episode with just 2 of us?
I'd like to figure it out. I mean, we could start by talking about what we've done the past 2 months.
Yeah, it's been 2 months since we last recorded because of scheduling issues and all sorts of crap. So we apologize for that, but we're back now with this special Christmas episode, and we've got a lot to talk about because I think about a week or so, or maybe a few days after we last recorded, I think both of us played Little Hope, the Dark Pictures anthology game.
Yes.
Which I thoroughly enjoyed, personally.
Oh, yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought the characters were better than Man of Medan.
Yeah.
And I really like the creature designs on this one.
The whole thing I thought was a lot better. I prefer the setting as well, kind of like this haunted town kind of thing. I mean, the haunted boat stuff's cool. You know, Resident Evil Revelations did a good job with that. Well, it wasn't haunted, but this like small haunted village with history of witchcraft, it's I found it really, really engaging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the biggest thing that I personally found more enjoyable about Man of Medan was really just the scientific elements. They have the chemicals and the reaction with electricity and water, like that kind of stuff I'm super into. But everything else, I like better about Little Hope, and that's just a personal thing.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, looking at the trailer for the next game, it doesn't look like I will enjoy it as much because the themes of it don't really speak to me as much, like monsters in the desert, but we'll see.
Well, it looks like we're playing as American military, so that's, that automatically makes me leery.
So it's essentially going to be exactly like that Monster Hunter movie that just came out.
Oh, boy. I don't have any personal experience to share with that, but I've heard it's real bad. Yeah.
It's not been getting good reviews at all. I can't imagine I'll go and see it. I mean, the last 2 Resident Evil films that he did were terrible. So I think I'll probably give it a pass.
Yeah, and I'm also absolutely not going to movie theaters.
No, me neither. Well, none of mine are open, so.
That's true, because, at least some of your people are smart.
Mm. But yeah, that's not all I've played. I mentioned in the last episode that I'd started Final Fantasy X, and I've now finished Final Fantasy X. I believe it took me somewhere in the region of about 55 hours, something like that. I don't remember the exact time, but that has turned into my favorite single-player Final Fantasy that I've played so far.
Nice. And what's funny is I think days after you finished Final Fantasy X, I started Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
Because I was playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I finished that, which is fantastic. Absolutely my game of the year, just based on the lack of games I played. But, yeah, Final Fantasy X is great. I don't remember what my time was last time, mostly because it was like, I want to say that was like 20... Oh, geez, that may have been like 2007, 2008.
Oh, so it would have been on the PS2 then.
Yeah, it was the PS2 version. I own the PS4 version, the PS3 version. Like, I actually pre-ordered the PS3 version. I just have never gotten around to actually playing through again. So
what are you playing it on this time?
So what I'm doing is because I'm recording it, which I've been recording a lot of my gameplay stuff now. I had started it a few months ago with my sister. That was on PS4, and I went back and looked at it. And it's like, okay, what I can do is I can jump between the PS3, PS4, and Vita version, and just transfer the save data back and forth between them, because this game in particular has the cross save functionality where you can upload and download the saves from the game menu itself.
That's good.
So that's what I'm doing, just so that and it's predominantly PS4, but I want to, number one, actually use this PS3 copy that I bought, for $50 in 2013. But it's also, I can record on all three systems and show what it was like on each different system. Yeah. And I also went back and recorded like an hour and a half, 2 hours of the PS2 version. Just to have a little more comparison on that.
Ah, cool. I think one thing that did strike me is the similarity in theme between this and 13. They are both about corrupt governments hiding the truth from people using racism.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both very, very linear.
Yeah. So now that you've played both, you see what I'm on about how these games are so similar, but everyone loves 10 and hates 13.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, like, the story's better in 10.
Yes.
Not that I disliked 13's story, but I did prefer 10's. I do prefer 10's battle system, but I also really enjoyed 13's once it kind of opened up a bit, once you got further into the game.
Yeah, once you get further along, the paradigm system is a blast, but it does take a while to get to that point. And the characters in 10 are much more likable than 13. And that's partially down to the fact that there's more of them, but also down to the fact that two of the characters in 13 are almost unbearable.
What, Snow and Hope?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler for you, Snow doesn't get any better in later games. Like, he's marginally tolerable in 13 too, but it's just, I never like Snow.
He's a little bit like Waka without a personality.
Yeah.
That was Final Fantasy X. I have started Final Fantasy VII, the original. Mm-hmm. I'm not terribly far in. I am currently at the battles on top of Shinra headquarters.
Oh, nice.
I think there's a couple battles that you've got to do back to back, and I think I died on the second one, and I've not gone back to my save to actually try again yet.
Are you talking about Rufus and then the fight in the elevators?
Yeah. There's Rufus, and then there's this mech that is on one kind of part of the elevator, and you're on another part, and you can't melee it. You've got to use ranged.
Which, is fine because Aerith and Red are both great casters.
Yeah. I've only just got Red into my party, like literally just before this fight.
Oh yeah, it's a good game. It really is. I've made the comment to you guys earlier, but one of the things I've discovered going through this thing where I always have a Final Fantasy running is like I just really love this series. Even if it's something that I feel like this deserves more attention or this shouldn't be as hyped as it is, they're still just really good games.
Yeah. I mean, I've beaten 3 and started playing another one this year. So I'm getting through them. I am enjoying 7 so far. One gripe that I have is the art style with the background. Mm-hmm. You can't tell what's scenery and what's interactable.
Yeah, and that's mostly down to the fact that you're walking around on a painting.
Yeah. Like, it took me so long to find the that wall you've got to climb to get out of the slums.
Yeah.
And get up to Shinra.
Yeah.
I was walking around for ages and ages and ages trying to find that because I couldn't see an opening, because I believe the entrance is kind of like right next to Don Corneo's mansion.
Yes.
But it just didn't look like I could go down there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's I worked it out eventually. I ended up having to look up a guide, but yeah, there's a couple particular places I've been to in that game where I am struggling to tell where I can walk and where I can't. Plus, I really don't like the ATB battle system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I much prefer turn-based. There are ways that active battle systems can work. Like, we just talked about 13. That works. That is a very different kind of system. But the action doesn't stop and wait for you in that battle system. But I was able to run with that fine.
I'm trying to remember if 7 has a setting to switch.
There are 3 settings. There's weight, normal, and something else. All it does is change whether or not the enemies attack while you're in a menu.
Right.
But you still have to kind of like sit there and wait for your ATB bar to kind of like charge up. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's a bit of a pain. I'm sure I'll get used to it. I'm like 3 maybe hours in, I think. So I'll get used to it, I'm sure.
Now, unfortunately, basically all of the early Final Fantasies have that kind of setup. I think as you go further back, it becomes more straight up turn based, as you saw with the first game.
Yeah,
I guess 7 feels more active than 6. I think 6 probably feels closer to the original than 7, just because of the way the style is. I think like 7, 8, 9 tends to be like a gray area for this, because they were still working out how they wanted to move forward.
Yeah, because I mean, like 10 was turn-based, so I figured at some point they must have kind of like just ditched the idea.
I think 8 and 9 have a similar system to 7. I actually really liked 10's system because it's just, okay, here's your turn order, and certain actions you take will move you up or down. Like, if you use an overdrive, you'll have more time or more turns happen before your next turn, which I like.
It took me probably about half of the game to actually fully work out what that turn order thing was telling me. But once I did, it just kind of clicked about halfway through. You know, when you're fighting Sin on the airship,
Yes.
and you actually have to pay attention to that to know when Sid is going to move the airship backwards and forwards. You know, that's kind of when it clicked for me.
Mm-hmm. One of the nice things is being able to look back and see the development and see, decisions that were made along the way. You get to experience things like 8, which either people love or they hate because the battle system was wonky. Same thing with 12. Some people are furious about 12 because they abandoned the turn-based battle system. And then some people absolutely love 12 because they say it's one of the best stories in the series. So,
well, the thing is, I'm kind of apprehensive about 12, purely because in Final Fantasy XIV there is kind of like a whole raid series and storyline based around stuff from 12,
right?
And I just really cannot get invested in it at all. The story and the stuff just doesn't do anything for me. So I'm kind of apprehensive about going into 12 because it's like, is it going to be like the stuff that I don't like in 14?
Right, and then unfortunately, I have played neither, so I can't really help. I don't know how closely tied they are, but Final Fantasy Tactics would give you a story in that world. I don't know if that helps investment or not, but
yeah, I think it is. It's not the same Dalmasca. It's kind of like their version of it, and the characters aren't quite the same. It is kind of like 14's universe versions of these characters from 12. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's not like it was when they had the Final Fantasy 15 crossover where it was actually the Noctis from Final Fantasy 15 that came over into Eorzea.
Right, it wasn't a direct crossover.
No, it was just telling a different story using the same characters rather than implanting the exact story and characters into 14. I'm probably not making a lot of sense, but
you're making perfect sense, and I like this is a very interesting thing because you've played just about all the content in 14, right?
Yeah.
So you're experiencing Final Fantasy XIV as a newcomer to the series, and you can now go back to the original game and see where this content in 14 came from. Like, I can't wait for you to get to Gold Saucer in 7 because that is a blast. But I have the exact opposite, which is I've played these original games and I get to see the content in 14 and be like, holy crap, I know that reference. It's a very interesting dynamic, and I think once I can get back into 14, we should really talk more about this because there could be potential for a video on this.
Yeah, and I mean, like the latest trial they've just added is Emerald Weapon from 7.
Let me tell you, I have been playing 7 since I was 13 years old, and I have never beaten Emerald Weapon.
Well, this one's probably a bit easy. Then I had one wipe on it and then killed it on second attempt.
Emerald Weapon in 7 is like it's a post game. I can't say post game because there basically is no post game, but it's like you don't go to that until you're at the very end of the game. It's harder than the final boss, and you need to find a special materia just to have a chance because it happens underwater.
Yeah, I think I think they call them super bosses, don't they? In the Final Fantasy series.
Yes.
In 10, I went into the Omega Ruins. I beat Ultima, but Omega just wiped the floor with me.
Yeah, and I think I think Ruby and Emerald might be some of the first ones they ever did, because I don't remember any in 6.
Which game is Ozma from? Because that pops up in 14. But I know I have seen it somewhere in the previous games.
9 looks like.
Ah.
Yep. Debuted in Final Fantasy 9 as the game's super boss. It's a Super Ball. Yeah, I actually haven't played through 9. Every time I start it, I just bounce off because it takes like an hour and a half to get to a save point.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah, like when you go to start 9, make sure that first session you have at least 2 hours to put into it, because it takes like an hour to get to that first save point or to get to the world map. Like it takes forever to get to a point where you can actually save the game.
This is actually something that I wanted to bring up as well. I mentioned it briefly in our Discord chat as well. I think that games ought to have, well, consoles ought to have rather, a suspend point for any game that you play on it. Not so much a save point, because I know there are a lot of games that kind of like rely on limited saves and stuff like that, you know, like Resident Evil, stuff like that, as part of its like difficulty and survival horror aspect in that. But if you just had one suspend point where you can turn off your console, and then when you turn it back on, you can go back to that point, why isn't that a thing?
What's especially infuriating is it was totally a thing for the Game Boy Advance. Like, so many Game Boy Advance games had this feature where, in fact, not even just Game Boy Advance, a lot of Fire Emblem games did this, where you can create a suspend or a quick save or whatever, and it's a temporary save thing where as soon as you boot the game up and load that save, it's deleted, but it's, you know, it's a break right where you are, and it's, you know, you can pick up, like, it's basically what you're describing. You can pick up right where you are, and it's a temporary save, doesn't take up a save slot or anything. And like, that was totally a thing for years, and it's never caught on for mainline consoles.
Yeah, because what I've been finding with a lot of these longer Final Fantasy games is I want to like go on and play a bit of the game, but I might have a limited amount of time. And I'm thinking to myself, I've only got half an hour. I'd better not go on, because I might not get to another save point in half an hour.
Yes.
Whereas if we had a suspend point, I could just say, "Oh, I've got to go now. Shut down console."
Now, so I think part of the reason they started just going away is because the handheld systems, the PSP, the Vita, the DS and 3DS, got to the point where you could put the system itself into sleep mode and not lose progress, which is a feature that has made it to Switch, but that's it. So,
yeah, I mean, as far as I'm aware, if you put the PS4 into rest mode, it will shut down applications.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, like, yeah, Switch, I can literally have the console turned off for a month, and I'll boot it back up, and I am back at that point.
Yep.
But yeah, it seems to be the only one that does. So that's a shame. That's a shame. You can tell Ryan's not here because we spent half an hour talking about Final Fantasy.
Yeah. That's what happens when you leave us. When you leave us by ourselves.
But anyway, yeah, like what else have you been playing this month then?
Well, let's see. So I think since the last time we recorded, Destiny 2 Beyond Light has come out. It's the latest expansion. Adds a new subclass where you have ice-based powers, which has led to all sorts of griefing in multiplayer, because the super can, and the grenade, as a matter of fact, can actually create a wall of ice that will freeze enemies. And if you're in PvP, it does that to the other players. So that's kind of a pain in the butt. But fortunately, I don't do PvP. So, and they've done some other tweaks. One of the competitive modes that I do take part in had some changes made that I think improve the experience. I mean, it's a good expansion. Still a little salty about the most of the previous content being archived. But,
yeah.
You know,
I mean, I don't play the game, and that pisses me off.
Yeah, it's still upsetting, especially because in the last season, you spent all this time running around talking to all the NPCs, being like, "Hey, you know, this planet's about to disappear. You know, you need to get out of here." One of them agrees to leave and go to the central hub for their safety, and then they're not there to talk to. Like, you know, my favorite character should be there to talk to, and she's just not. So that's a little upsetting. And they did give you some more quests with one of the other NPCs, but it's like, come on. Like, I don't know, it's a good expansion. You know, I still like the game, but it hasn't held my attention super, super well. But then, you know, with everything that's been going on and all the games I've been playing, that's not really a surprise. I'm trying to think what else I've done. I've kind of been dipping in and out of Crystal Chronicles still.
I've still only done the one session on that. I've not yet been back to it.
Yeah, I went back and finished the first area, and that took like, you know, 2 more tries, because like I would go in and just be running around and then either run out of time or get bored. So I'll probably still keep chipping away at that. What else have I been doing? I started Mass Effect Andromeda because I've basically been resisting Mass Effect all year. And when they finally announced the remasters of the Mass Effect trilogy, that was like, okay, you know, that's not coming out till April. I'll go ahead and play Andromeda for a little bit. It was going fine, and then, you know, I went into quarantine and started playing everything because I had so much time. Started up Metal Gear Solid because, you know, I have just about all of that series, and I was like, yeah, you know, fuck it. I've got a bunch of time. Let me go ahead and start this.
I've still never played a single one of them.
From what I understand, they're super great. I have no experience whatsoever.
I believe that is actually one HD collection that Konami didn't fuck up.
Oh, yeah. Like, there's the Metal Gear Solid HD collection, which is 2, 3, and Peace Walker, I believe. And the copy of 3 in that has the first 2 games, Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. That was actually a pretty good collection. The better one, which is the one I have, has those 3 games, Metal Gear Solid 2, 3, and Peace Walker, including the version of 3 with Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. Metal Gear Solid VR missions, which is just like an expansion for the original Solid. Metal Gear Solid 4, and 2 of the digital comic books, actually. The Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection. That is like it's a great collection, and it is so hard to find these days. Like, I have a friend who's still jealous that I managed to find one with artwork.
That does sound pretty comprehensive. I mean, if you're going to get a collection of Metal Gear, that's kind of the one that you want to go for, isn't it?
Yeah, because, like, the entire expansive Metal Gear series, and there's a few games I don't have still, but between that, Metal Gear Rising, and then the 2 retail copies of Metal Gear Solid 5, I have basically everything. I mean, I'm missing a couple of the side games, but one of those is on the way. So, yeah, I mean, if you look for a way to get into the series, which is what I needed, it's perfect because I have access to everything. The version of Metal Gear Solid on there is actually the PS1 Classics version, so that I can play on my PS3, PSP, or Vita. So, yeah, I mean, it's a great collection. I highly recommend it.
Ah, cool. I mean, for some reason the game series just doesn't really appeal to me. Maybe it's something I'll look at some point.
It's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I like Tetsuya Nomura's wacky weirdness with regards to Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. Hideo Kojima has a different kind of wacky weirdness. So it remains to be seen if I'm going to enjoy that, but I might be okay with it. Kojima is a different kind of wacky weirdness, so I don't know if I'm going to enjoy his or not.
Tetsuya Nomura did the design for the final boss fight in the raid in Final Fantasy XIV, which just came out, and that is probably my favorite fight in the expansion.
Well, and here's the thing: like Tetsuya Nomura has been working on, he's been working on elements of damn near every Final Fantasy that's in 3D. Like I've been looking through some of the credit sequences, and he was a character designer all the way back at 7.
Yeah, and 10 as well.
Yeah, and 10, and I'm sure he was in there for 8 and 9, and so his fingerprints have been there the whole time. Personally, I love his work. I'm a big fan of the guy, but that's also that's not the majority opinion.
Well, I mean, you can't really fault his character design stuff in 7 and 10.
I mean, it made for iconic characters. Proper iconic, not Ubisoft iconic.
Hey, hold on a second. What's that bit of paper over there?
Let me take a look here. So it's a letter to Santa. I think it's Brian's.
We shouldn't read it. That would be rude.
No, I think it's hilarious. He still believes in Santa at this age. I'm going to read through it.
Okay.
Dear Santa, how is the North Pole this year?
I'm afraid it will soon melt due to global warming and you'll drown, but I've done my best to reduce my carbon footprint, and I think that puts me on the good boy list. This is an exciting year for retro gamers who have an unhealthy obsession with nostalgia. Did you know that Perfect Dark is getting a new game after almost a whole decade? You might take note of that for next year.
Oh yeah, they just announced that. Yeah, Perfect Dark. The trailer didn't say anything. Joanna's got a nice new haircut. That's about it.
Yeah, I'll admit I haven't really watched any of those announcements, but I mean I'm interested to see it. I enjoyed Perfect Dark, which was surprising given how much I hate GoldenEye, but we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, because I didn't really like Perfect Dark Zero. Well, I played one level, and I was like, no more of this, please.
Right.
But yeah, the new Perfect Dark announced. We don't know anything, really. We didn't even have a release date or anything, I don't think. But yeah, be interesting. I mean, Adam was excited.
That was a big couple of days for him.
Yeah. Final Fantasy IV got a patch on Steam and mobile, basically fixing a load of stuff. It is the port of the DS version, so it is the one that's in 3D, not the one that's in 2D.
Right. Which
may put some people off. I mean, for me personally, I'd rather play the version that's on PSP, which is 2D. But yeah, apparently there's quite a lot of stuff, and it's kind of come out of the blue that all of a sudden Final Fantasy IV would get a patch.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend the PSP version, especially because it has the After Years attached to it.
Yeah, and it's got the interlude. As well.
So, but yeah, nice to see that they're still patching that stuff. I know you had said a while back that they patched the copy of Chrono Trigger that was on Steam, making that actually playable.
Yeah, because that was like really bad when it first came out. If you go back and look at the reviews on Steam, they are not good. But that was fixed, and it does play really well now.
Yeah, so I'm glad they're patching these games because even though I'm not going to play them on Steam. Some people, that's the only way they'll be able to play them. So I'm glad they're thinking about those people.
Yeah, because I don't have a cartridge, and I'm still salty about it not being on the SNES Mini. So
Join the club.
It is just a PC for me.
Yeah, not everyone can have 4 to 6 copies of every game like me.
Yeah. Well, I'm like that with Resident Evil. I think I've mentioned before, I've got like 8 or 9 different versions of Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
And I've only ever played the 1. But, yeah. But anyway, more news. This is a bit of an interesting one. Dragon's Lair Mini Arcade is coming out. Basically, those little third-size mini arcade things. There's going to be one with the Dragon's Lair FMV game in it.
Man, they're getting so much mileage out of that.
Yeah, it's like I've seen the size of these things, and I would feel uncomfortable playing them.
Yeah, I can't. I'd much rather play on a console.
I mean, I'm not particularly tall. I'm like 5'8", and this will be too small for me to comfortably play.
Yeah.
Especially something like Dragon's Lair, because you kind of have to recognize certain tells in the animation. You've got to be quite precise with a lot of your inputs in that game.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I would struggle with it. But it is reproduced really nicely. The cabinet looks nice. It even actually opens up, and there's a little model of a Laserdisc player in there. That you wouldn't actually see because it's like inside the cabinet, but you can open up the cabinet and it's got like a little Laserdisc player inside.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how much they said it was going to be, but it was quite expensive.
Well, yeah.
And it's not something I'm interested in, but
no, absolutely not. I mean, like, I like Dragon's Lair. I think Dragon's Lair is a cool thing to do, especially if you've got a group of people over. Just pass the controller around. But I wouldn't want to have this pseudo arcade version. I'd rather just play it on PS4 or something.
Yeah. It seems that the new Xbox consoles are going to be really good emulation machines.
Oh, it's I am so excited for this story because so this was first found on the Series S, but it works on the Series X as well. Basically there's an option in the Xbox OS to activate developer mode. And once you do that, you can actually set them up to run a whole bunch of different emulators. And you don't have to hack the system or anything. You just have to flip on developer mode. So the Xbox Series S is now one of the best emulation machines out there.
It's really cool news. I mean, even going back as far as the original Xbox, I mean, that is meant to be a really good emulation machine as well.
Yeah. And now you don't even have to modify it. Me personally, I'm gonna get the Series X because I'm an Xbox player, and that's I play everything, but that I want that better Xbox. But the Series S is a really good pickup, especially for people like us, because you have access to so many original Xbox games, so many 360 games, and if you happen to have digital copies of Xbox One games, which I have a lot of because of Gold. But, you have access to Game Pass, and you have access to all these different emulators. It's fantastic. A $300 box that does all of that, it's a hell of a deal.
If I could only have one console in the house, I'd have an Xbox and Game Pass.
Yeah.
Because you can just play pretty much anything on it.
It's so helpful. Like when we played Gears of War, that was super helpful to just be like, oh, it's on Game Pass. And we just boot that up. So yeah, I am very excited for this. And like I said, I'm definitely getting the Series X. That'll come first. But I might just pick up a Series S at some point just for this feature. Because I mean, you guys know I much prefer playing on a console, and it can be kind of a pain in the butt for me to get my PC set up to where I can play it in a chair or on the couch and not in my computer chair. So like a box that's easy to set up and easy to do all this emulation on, that would be awesome. I mean, I can easily wait for the price to come down. But yeah, I'm very excited for this. So it'll be very interesting to see how this develops, because now that they've seen some of what it can do, people are going to start tinkering and start pushing the limits and figure out, how much further they can go with it.
Yeah. I think you already mentioned that PS2 emulation is possible.
That was one of the huge ones, was people figured out that they could run a really good PS2 emulator on it. And that, I mean, the PS4 can't even do that, which, okay, so you can buy digital versions of PS2 games in the PS4, but,
it's a very, very limited library.
It's a very limited library, and it's, kind of a process to go through, and you basically have to know the games are there. Like, so this kind of thing is great. Very excited. It's always nice to see the emulation crowd get something big like this. Yeah. Because, I mean, those are the people that are preserving the legacy of games and the history of games, because fuck knows the publishers aren't.
At least disc-based stuff, anyway. Or stuff that was and is available on physical media. I mean, you've still got an issue where if a digital game goes away, then it's gone.
I mean, I certainly don't want it to be where only the collectors still have the ability to play some of this stuff. There's also a lot of benefits that I use, like, I just played through Samus Returns again, but on the emulator, because I have a way to dump the cartridges and everything, so I could actually record that game, because I can't record my 3DS.
Yeah.
And I can play it with a controller, so I was way better. So yeah, like there's a lot of value in the emulation scene, and a lot of good things come out of it. So
going on to another somewhat related topic, the Final Fantasy Legends collection came out, which has the 3 Game Boy games from the Final Fantasy Legends / Saga collection.
Yeah, I mean, they were the only Final Fantasy Legends games.
Yeah, that was £15 on Steam, and I bought it like 3 months ago, and it downloaded to my Switch, and it's just been sitting there waiting for December 15th to unlock.
Yeah.
And yeah, it came out. It's 3 hard-to-find games that are now available cheap. It is bare bones. It's absolutely bare bones. You don't get manuals or anything like that. There seems to be a bug with the dialogue boxes that I've found, where for just 1 frame, you get a ghost of the last dialogue box that you saw pop up when you talk to someone. Mm-hmm. Which is a weird bug to have.
It really is.
It does have like a couple features, like you can have virtual buttons on there, so you can play it like purely touchscreen, which looks like it was developed as a mobile port. It kind of makes it look a bit cheap. Mm-hmm. You can turn those buttons off, but there are still certain buttons on the screen that you're not able to turn off, and none of the backgrounds are particularly good either. It seems, for something that has been sitting there finished for 3 months, I think they could have done a bit more with it. I mean, the games are there, they're playable. It's cheaper than you'd pay for physical versions, so that's great. But it seems a bit lazy.
Yeah, which is a shame, because I mean, like, I've not managed to play these games yet. I have 2 and 3 physically. Still haven't tracked down a copy of the original, but from what I understand, they're hard as crap, and some people really enjoy them. So I was kind of hoping this would be. I was honestly hoping this would be like the Collection of Mana. That Collection of Mana was a great value for fans of the series. This just seems like hey, let's make these games digital and put them out there rather than actually adding to it at all.
Yeah, I mean, there doesn't appear to be a quick save feature that I've been able to find. I mean, I had a look in all the menus. I couldn't find one, which, again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, I mean, that is something that, like, ports like this really ought to have.
Yeah.
And manual, that is kind of like bare bones. That is something that is so easy to do.
Especially for games from this time period when reading the manual was actually important.
Yeah, exactly. You can look at something like the Konami Castlevania collection, which I believe also doesn't include the manuals, but there's a big difference between playing Castlevania and playing a Final Fantasy game.
Right.
And whilst, yes, Konami should have put the manuals in there, Square definitely should have put the manuals in this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to remember if the Mana Collection had manuals. I want to say they had something like that. I know I'll have to check later and let you know. But I want to say they had some kind of thing you could look at. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There should definitely be a manual included. Because, I mean, like, okay, not many people are like me and have the original physical copies. Even fewer have the manuals. I also happen to have the map for 3, but that was just lucky. But yeah, like they definitely need to put some of that in there.
And they need to sort out that problem with the dialogue box as well. But like I said, if it's been sat there finished for 3 months, I don't think they're going to do that.
No, like that's the thing. They could have made changes at any time, so it's a shame.
I have one more piece of news on my list here. Panzer Dragoon Remake is getting a rather nice looking collector's edition. There are 3 versions, the biggest of which includes a laser cut dragon miniature, which is quite an impressive looking thing. You get the physical game, a collector's box, certificate, this dragon, and some pieces of artwork as well. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know this is another one Adam was like super, super excited for. So that's cool. I probably won't buy it just because, like, I'll probably get at least a digital copy of the remaster remake, whichever it is, but not super interested in a crazy collector's edition. I'm glad it exists. It's just not something I'm going to pay for.
Yeah, I think the digital version has been out actually for a couple of months or so. I'm sure I've seen people playing that.
Yeah, I just not gotten there.
This is another limited run kind of situation. It's a company called Forever Limited. Mm-hmm. But if it's just collector's items, I'm kind of fine with that.
Right.
It's not like a regular print run that they're only doing like a few copies of, collector's edition, nice miniatures inside, that's fine.
Right.
But yeah, that's all the news I've got unless you have anything.
I do. At the game advertisements, as Jim Sterling calls them, we got the announcement that Sephiroth is being added to Smash Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's made a lot of people very excited and a lot of people annoyed. Truth be told, like even as someone who's tired of hearing about Final Fantasy VII, despite how much I enjoy the game, I'm excited for this. Like this is going to be awesome. I don't know if it's out yet.
When the characters are actually in the game, does it play like the character themes as well? Because Sephiroth's got an awesome theme.
So his music is in there. December 23rd is when it's being added, so a few days away. So I know his theme, One Winged Angel, is going to be in the game. Well, what I think would be funny, like I know they won't do this, but if like anytime he's in a battle, it doesn't matter where it is or who else is there, it always plays One Winged Angel. Because that's kind of how the character is. Like, no matter what, if he's around, that theme is playing. Yeah, it's cool to see this because, you know, yes, it's another freaking sword character, but it's a, you know, he's a different kind of sword wielder. You know, his sword is 1.5 times the length of a normal fighter. So it'll be very interesting to see. I haven't watched the presentation they did a couple of days ago where Sakurai went through everything about the character. But I know I think this is going to be great. It's you know, Sephiroth is still a good character, and he's one of the most memorable parts of 7.
If he doesn't have a jumping backstab move, then I'll be sad.
Yeah, that absolutely needs to be his down air.
But yeah, so that is out in a few days.
Yeah, December 23rd. So yeah, a couple of days we'll be able to do that. I probably won't be able to pick them up until next year, but when I do get my hands on them, I'll let you know how it is.
Okay, cool. Well, with all that out of the way, it looks like Ryan's actually written a little bit more on that note there. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll see what else he's got. Okay, so what else did he write on this letter?
Let's see. I think for Christmas, though, I want to celebrate the holidays.
So the first thing on my wish list is The Grinch. It came out back in 2000. It's a faithful recreation of the Grinch movie, and that Grinch movie is basically the best Christmas movie ever. I think you've watched it. Anyway, you play the Grinch and you have to steal Christmas, and while I feel bad about trying to ruin Christmas, I just have to remind myself that it's a video game and it's not real, which is how I sleep at night after I kill hundreds of people in Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, so The Grinch was not as bad as I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, so the theme we went with this year was bad Christmas games. And I picked this because I was considering it for our previous episode about Christmas games and chose not to go with it because when I was looking it up, people were talking about how bad it was. And then I actually played it, and it's not that bad. I mean, you know, I had a few issues not related to the game, more related to what I was using to play it. But the game itself, like, it was fine. It was, just like a lot of those, 3D collectathon games from the time. It wasn't particularly egregious.
No, because I mean, but both of us played it on a browser-based emulator for PS1 games. Mm-hmm. Which it's a little bit laggy. It's not great. You can configure it to work with a controller, so that's all fine.
Yeah.
And it starts out with these cutscenes, and it's like, oh, this is going to be really awful. The guy doesn't sound like Mike Myers at all.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Mike Myers or Jim Carrey?
Jim Carrey.
Oh, it's Jim Carrey. Well, that's probably why it didn't sound like Mike Myers. But he didn't sound like Jim Carrey either.
Which I'm not sure if this is supposed to tie into the movie or not. Let me see here.
The character design looks like the movie character.
Okay.
So I think it is meant to be.
The artwork on the box doesn't look like the Jim Carrey. Well, but it about lines up with the time frame, so I guess it is.
Yeah, I mean, even if it wasn't kind of like really based on the movie. It was certainly made to promote it.
Right.
As kind of like a tie-in. So it's essentially you go into these different areas and you've got presents that you need to break. You need to kind of like get certain amounts, and kind of like the stuff you collect in a lot of collectathons. But as well as that, you've got like this mission list of things that you can do. Like in the first level, the mission list is destroy X amount of snowmen, deface X amount of posters, shuffle the mail. And there's kind of like different ways you've got to go about these tasks. Like to shuffle the mail, you've got to go and get a disguise to sneak into the post office. And a lot of the stuff like presents, posters are on ledgers that you've got to work out how to get up. And despite the controls not being great, they feel a little bit inaccurate. It's playable. It's playable. And I kind of feel like if a game gives me a list of things to do, I'm immediately more engaged.
Right.
Like, yeah, this is a list. I want to do all of these things on this list. And it was, I wouldn't say amazing, but it was decent.
The list kind of, it can be good for me, but it can also give me anxiety, like in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, where I'm like, I can't do that. But no, this one was fine. The list of things wasn't super crazy, and it was, some of those kids are hard to avoid, though. Like,
oh yeah. You've got little kids running around trying to hug you, and that causes you damage. And there are different ways to fend some of them off. Like you've got really bad breath, and you can breathe on some of them, and they'll run away. Other ones you can't really avoid, so you've got to. You have a dog. You have a pet dog, and you can switch between the Grinch and his pet dog, and the kids won't react to the dog, which is weird, because you'd run around wanting to hug the dog, surely. But so yeah, some of them you have to use the dog to kind of like get around. Yeah,
so it like I said, I didn't get terribly far in, but I thought it was pretty decent. It's certainly better than I expected any of the games this episode to be.
Yeah, and the music's all right. I mean, it's inoffensive.
Not certainly not up to our usual standards, but it was okay.
Now, I was one criticism that I was going to mention about this game, which actually ended up being a bit of a moot point. I was going to complain about the lack of camera control, but it turns out you can control the camera, and I just didn't know what the buttons were to do it, because I didn't read the manual until after I'd played the game, which is not the way. That's not the way around you want to do it, really. But you can turn the camera left and right.
And that just comes down to this being on the PS1 when they were still figuring out how to do camera control.
Yeah, because I figured when playing it, because I couldn't control the camera with the right stick, that I couldn't control it. Because that is where the camera is on video games.
Right.
It's on the right stick. But it's actually on the shoulder buttons, which for some reason I didn't check.
Yeah, and that, that's just down to the being in that transition period.
Honestly, with these games, I mean, like Steven said, we kind of like went with kind of like a bad Christmas games kind of theme. If I saw this for about £10 or less physical, I would pick this up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm I'd certainly be willing to play through this game once I had a better method of playing it.
I feel like playing through this with a PS3 pad would have made the experience a lot more enjoyable.
Probably,
because I used a 360 pad because I was playing it in this browser emulation on my PC, which 360 is a really good pad, but it wasn't designed for that pad.
Right.
And I kind of feel that I would have a better experience with a PlayStation pad, so the button inputs kind of like line up. So when it says press triangle, I don't press Y instead.
Right.
Or whatever the button lineup is. So yeah, I would pick it up. The going price on eBay seems to be about £20 for a PAL version. I wouldn't pay 20, but
No.
I'd pay 10. I'd pay 10.
Take a look. I don't think my local game shop's going to have any copies of this.
I mean, I've never actually watched the film. It doesn't appeal to me in any way.
I've seen bits and pieces of it before, but never actually sat down and watched it. Oh, apparently there's a Dreamcast version.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah,
Have to let Adam know about that. There's the PlayStation version. What do we got? Well, the Dreamcast version starts at $50 on Amazon, so no. The PlayStation version starts at about $20 on Amazon. My local game shop has the PlayStation version for $15 and the Dreamcast version for $25, but they don't have any currently in stock.
I don't know if the Dreamcast version would run better because the Dreamcast is kind of like more contemporaneous with the PS2. I mean, it came out like a few months before the PS2 did,
Right.
so it is a more powerful console. So I don't know if I'm assuming it would have been just a straight port.
Probably. No idea, but I'm not paying $50 for this.
No, but the good thing about this emulator site is it lets you save your game as well, which is quite good. It basically when you save your game, it downloads like a save game file to your desktop, and when you want to load the game, comes up with a box. You just like open up your save again. So that's quite good, even if the site is a bit laggy.
Right.
Because especially with games moving on to the CD era, they start taking up a lot of drive space if you're going to have a lot of them.
Yeah, definitely.
So being able to play it on a website. What was the name of the website? We should mention that.
Did I save it? I don't think I did. Hang on, let me scroll back. The site
I've got
it.
ps1fun.com.
Yeah.
And that's one is in the number.
I think they have other systems too, because there's a bar on the side of the screen that's got a bunch of different consoles, like SNES, Game Boy Advance, Genesis. Yeah. So like the Game Boy Advance is just gbafun.com. So they've got a whole series of websites for various retro consoles.
That's pretty good. I mean, for a lot of those older ones, you're probably going to get better performance just downloading the ROMs and playing them in an emulator. But certainly, if you're on the go, like if you're on a laptop or something, that is a really good way to immediately access a big library.
Right. So anyway, are you ready to move on?
Yeah. I think there's not much more to say about it.
There really isn't.
I only got to like the second section, and
I didn't even get that far.
You can start using your gadgets a bit in the second section, because the whole conceit of the game is the Grinch
finding his
loses all
blueprints and stuff.
Yeah. The Grinch loses all his blueprints for his gadgets, so you're trying to like find them. And in the second one, you use your gun to shoot down some beehives from trees, and then you've got to use your jetpack to jump on top of the houses and drop them in people's chimneys. Which is actually quite annoying because you have a timer to do it on. It's like 10 seconds, and sometimes it's a bit tight, but yeah. So I didn't get particularly far, but like I said, this is if you're looking for something and you find it cheap, you're probably going to have an okay time with this.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see what else Ryan has here. The next game on my wish list is Moly Christmas. I don't really know what's going on,
but the colors are quite festive. I guess you're some sort of mole man who has to get to Christmas, or at least that's what happens when you win. You get to see a Christmas tree, and when you think about it, isn't that what Christmas is all about? The music is pretty cool, too. Oh, I guess the game will have to come with a ZX Spectrum, too, so I can play it. You might have to ask British Santa Claus to hook you up with one of those.
So this game came free with Your Sinclair magazine, which was a Spectrum magazine that I used to get monthly back in the day. And it's not really a full game. It's just something they stuck on there free for Christmas that they kind of like had someone make for them. It's kind of a platformer thing where you got to go around collecting things. I don't quite know what the things are. They're just things that you have to like collect, and the whole game can be beaten in like 5 minutes. But I could not get off the first screen because it is really, really awkward and difficult to control.
Yeah, I wasn't able to play this one, but I pulled up some gameplay videos, and like I'm looking at it like I don't know what's going on. And once I figured out what they were doing, it was simple enough. But it's like, okay.
You have an energy meter, and anytime you touch an enemy, the meter goes down a bit. If you've ever seen like Jet Set Willy or something like that, there's enemies going back and forth, jumping up and down that you've got to kind of like avoid. And anytime you touch an enemy, energy goes down, which would be fine, but your energy goes down on its own as well. So you kind of have a time limit to get through each screen. And I just couldn't get the timing right on the jumps. Like I tried it with a gamepad, I tried it with keyboard, and my emulator is solid. Like there's no slowdown whatsoever, and I just could not get the timing right to get all the bits without getting hit by enemies, and to do it in the time frame, which is a shame. I mean, it's not like it's a good game, but you kind of think, okay, this game is 5 minutes long. I should be able to kind of like get through it.
Right.
But it turns out, I believe there are like 4 screens in total. The first 3 are your platformy things where you're collecting stuff. And then the last screen, you get a version of Frogger.
Oh, yeah, that one.
You have to get, I believe, newspapers from one side of the road to the other. You're delivering newspapers to the Your Sinclair offices, I think. And that bit actually looks pretty fun. That looks like a pretty decent like version of Frogger. Mm. But yeah, I couldn't actually get that far.
That part of it did seem the like it was the best part of it, but it was also I also had a thing where the first video I pulled up for this was like I think it was like 9 minutes long. And I was like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense for a Spectrum game. And then the first 7 minutes were just that startup screen. And I was like, okay, that's just weird. Like they were just trying to pad out the runtime for YouTube or something.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it looked okay. I mean, it's still kind of hard to figure out what's going on at first.
Without having the magazine to refer back to, you don't really know what's going on all that much, because with this just coming free on a cover mount tape, you wouldn't have like an instruction manual with it. It's just whatever they printed in the magazine, which I do not have. As Ryan said, the music is pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually all right.
Yeah, it was okay.
It's just a shame that the music is better than the game is.
Yeah, well, We'll probably see plenty of that as we go through stuff.
Obviously, if you're looking to track down a physical copy of this, it might be a little bit difficult. Well, yeah, don't. But, I mean, there will be other stuff on the tape as well.
Oh, that's true.
But I can't imagine there's loads of these kind of like floating around. There's probably a fair few. I mean, it was a fairly popular magazine. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't pick it up just for this. In fact, I was going to check to see if I had this actual tape because I played it on a ROM, but I completely forgot. So I might actually have this. But yeah, if you're looking for a shit ZX Spectrum Christmas game, which they all seem to be shit, the Christmas games on ZX Spectrum, as we found out last year as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, just skip this one.
Yeah, I mean, like, the best part about it is how short it is. Like, at least it doesn't take that long.
Yeah, well, it takes 30 seconds until the energy meter just goes down and I die.
Well, yeah, there's that.
But do you have anything else to say about this game?
No, not really.
Okay, so what else is on this letter that Ryan's got then?
Let me take a look here. Uh-oh, he's got one more on here. The last game I want is Santa Claus Saves the World, because basically
you save the world in a way every year, and that's super cool. Of course, it isn't as exciting as defeating an evil fairy and all of her traps around the world, but hey, what is?
Okay, that game is actually pretty bad.
Well, you could only charitably call it a game.
That's very true.
I mean, first, let's start off with the title. The story of the game is that this evil fairy sees Santa making presents and she traps him in these kind of like worlds that she's made, these fantasy worlds, and he has to get out so he can get out and deliver presents. That is not saving the world.
No.
Santa Claus doesn't save the world. He just gets out of prison. So straight off, the title sets me off. I would implore every one of you to Google the artwork for this game, because it's definitely something, and it's not something good.
Oh, right. I forgot about the weird cover art.
I mean, it just looks like, I don't know, most of the cover is just blank snow. And there's just like Santa in the middle, and you've got goblins and some other enemies kind of like off to the side. And it just looks so amateurish.
Yeah, that is not good design.
But that is like nothing compared to the actual game. You basically shoot snowballs to defeat enemies, and you've got a sack you can swing, and I think you can also throw tomatoes. I think that's what the icon was.
Yeah, I think it was.
So basically, it's a platformer, and it's a very maze-like platformer. If you think back to some of the, let's say, kind of like the underwater levels of Sonic, where there's a lot of back and forth, there's a lot of looping around, and it runs really, really slow.
Yeah.
That is like this whole game. That is like Sonic's water speed is the speed of this entire game. And these levels are kind of like mazes. You don't really know what you need to do. There's kind of like various enemies, and some of them seem to be more susceptible to one type of ammo than another. But enemy placement is like, it's super bad. Like, as soon as you get within a certain range of an enemy, they'll just come towards you. And you just cannot avoid taking damage at all. And you're moving that slow, you can't really kind of like jump over stuff.
Yeah, and if you get too close to them, your snowballs won't hit them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Like there's different, like, you see like different colored coins and stuff you can collect, and there's these, like, they look like cans of snowballs, which is weird.
I wasn't sure what a lot of the icons actually were.
This definitely feels like a, we should put out a Christmas game this year. It's September. Let's throw something together.
Yeah. It looks rushed. It feels rushed. I did actually do a bad. I bought this game.
You wish you hadn't.
I saw it on eBay for £3, and I don't think we've mentioned it's a PS1 game, and it was basically just the disc and the manual. Didn't have a box.
You're lucky you got a manual.
Yeah, a lot of the icons and stuff are kind of like described in the manual, but I had such a bad time playing the game. I just couldn't be arsed to look at the manual and see what a lot of this stuff was, to be honest. But for a game which is clearly made for kids, I had to look up a guide to get out of level 1.
Yeah, you put more effort in than I did.
Yeah, because it turns out there's these like tiny little squares on the screen, which are actually switches. You've got to turn those on to get some conveyor belt things moving. And I had no idea what they were. I had no idea how to kind of like trigger these switches. And I just kept going around in circles over and over again. Because with it being kind of like a maze, there's a lot of areas where if you mistime a jump and fall off a ledge, you can go back like 5 minutes back in the level and have to work your way around again.
Mm-hmm.
It is just awful. And level 2 is actually fairly straightforward. That was more or less kind of like I think that might have taken me 5 or 10 minutes to do level 2. Level 3 was another maze type one, and after a few minutes, I just couldn't be asked. I just turned it off. I was like, no, I'm not playing any more of this.
I started this, and on top of the emulation issues I was having, I was just like, no, this isn't happening.
It doesn't help that the music is god awful as well.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. It's not a perfect loop. So it plays for about a minute. Then it stops. Then you get dead silence for like 10 seconds. And then it'll just suddenly kick back in again. Which is just, it just sounds so ominous in those 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But the bonus that I got, because I bought this physical, you know how some PlayStation games have the soundtrack on the disc so you can actually put it in a CD player and listen to it?
Right.
This game does. So
nice.
I actually have the soundtrack in CD quality audio, and it is just everything that is wrong with the world.
Yeah.
And the graphics are just horrible. It is a horrible game to look at. They are bland. They're basic. You can't quite tell what kind of world you're in. It looks like rock. It might be. I don't know.
Yeah, everything's pretty ill-defined visually.
And there's weird shit in this fantasy world that he's trapped in. There are paintings of clowns. There's a grandfather clock. Just weird shit everywhere.
So if anyone's interested, a copy of this will be on eBay.
I don't think I could inflict that on anyone. But it's like this. I know it's a different system, but this game came out a year after Silent Hill 2. That's evolution of video games right there.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, there are games being made and coming out right now for modern systems that are worse than Silent Hill 2. Like,
well, yeah, but this I just found especially egregious because they'd clearly not put any effort in. This company also did a game called Rascal Racers, which I've not played, but I have seen footage of it, and it just looks like this lazy car racing thing that they just slapped together. They're just not a quality company. They just put out shit.
Yep. So give it a miss.
Yes. Anything else to say on that one?
Nope. Fuck it.
Yeah. Fuck it. Okay, so most of these games were actually pretty bad. I mean, why would Ryan want such bad games for Christmas?
Honestly, with him, there's no telling. Hell, hey, look, there's more on the back. But if I can't have those games for Christmas, then all I really want is for my co-hosts and listeners to get what they want for Christmas, and I'll take one for the team if I need to. Because it's not about getting stuff, it's about being happy, and boy, do we need more of that this year. Thanks, Santa. Sincerely, Ryan Hester of the Retro Odyssey.
Huh.
Well, now I kind of feel like a jerk for making fun of the letter.
I told you it wasn't nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, I gotta go. Can't stay up all night.
Yeah. Or Santa won't come?
Yeah. Santa.
Well, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and a happy new season.
So that's all of the bad Christmas games out of the way. I'm glad that those are behind us. Apart from the Grinch, which is all right.
Yeah, that was decent enough. You know, I'll play that at some point. But you know, we'll pick better games next year.
Yeah. Well, since this is the last episode of the year, we wanted to discuss our favorite games of the year out of all of the games that we've covered since the start of the year. So I'll let you go first, Stephen. What was your favorite game out of everything that we've played this year?
I mean, look, I could sit here and, you know, waffle back and forth about Metroid or Marvel Ultimate Alliance or Doom, but let's be honest, it's Dragon's Dogma. Like, it's such a good game. There's a reason I picked it for that episode. Like, it's just an amazing game.
Yeah, I mean, we did it like right at the start of the year, and it immediately jumped into my top 5 games of all time. So I mean, it's Dragon's Dogma for me as well. And yeah. I've still not gone into the DLC, but just purely based on the main game, absolutely, I don't think anything's even come close this year.
Yeah, just that DLC is brutal, so be ready for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and now I will say, I do really like, you know, we played Metroid 2, and that kind of sent me down the rabbit hole, and I've basically played every 2D Metroid at least twice this year. So that, you know, that was nice, you know, playing so much Metroid. I'm still I stopped doing my Metroid streams, but I'm still playing through and recording all of them. It was nice to really dig deep into a really good series like that.
That's what I've been doing with Final Fantasy this year. I'm on my 4th single player one at the minute, so yeah.
Hey, you know what? You're doing better with this project than I normally do, because I've been on my current, you know, Final Fantasy kick for like 2 or 3 years, and it's been a thing of, okay, I'm going to play through all of them, and like I'll just have months go by where I don't touch them.
Yeah, well, maybe further down the line, I'll start to feel kind of like a little bit like, oh, another one, really. But as it stands at the moment, I did 13 first, then I did 1, then did 10. Now I'm doing 7.
Yeah, and I think by jumping around like that, you're keeping it more fresh. Because whenever I would try to do this before, it's like, okay, I'm going to start at 1. And then the problem is I was playing the PlayStation version of 1, which is hard as crap, and get discouraged because, I was a teenager when I tried it the first few times. So, but I think jumping around really helps because when I stopped going in order on this particular run and started jumping around, I started enjoying myself more. So I think you're doing it the right way, getting some of the newer experiences.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm doing it. I wanted to kind of mix it up quite a bit more, and I didn't want to play 6 2D turn-based ones in a row, and then suddenly jump into a load of 3D ones. I just felt it would get a bit samey.
Yeah.
So, which is why I am going back and forth. I'm thinking of doing 12 next, but 7 is going to take me a while.
7 is going to take a while, and if you need any help with the running around and getting stuff towards the end, I have some tips you can use.
All right, brilliant. Because I actually thought that I had a strategy guide for 7, but I don't.
And it's not easy to come by.
So unlike the other 3 games that I've completed this year, this one I'm actually doing blind.
I'll give you a heads up if there's something that you can miss permanently, because there are some areas that you only go to once.
Oh, that actually reminds me of something I was going to bring up at the start. It's kind of past that point now, but I got very pissed off in Final Fantasy X because I missed one Albed Primer, and it's in the one place you can't go back to. One of the ones in the Albed home.
Yeah.
That is the only one I missed. I have 25 of those primers. That really pisses me off.
Yeah.
So now the entire Albed language is translated, apart from, I think, U's.
Yeah.
I think the it's either the letter U or the letter I that just doesn't get translated, which is just annoying.
Yeah, that sucks.
But yeah.
I think we're pretty much done. We've gushed about Final Fantasy and F for 2 episodes.
Yeah, this is what happens when Ryan goes off with Santa. We will still have to force him to do a RPG episode at some point now.
Oh, for sure.
But we make it ones that we have actually already played.
Yeah, I mean that's I have done that many times on this show before. Yeah, I think we're pretty much done there.
Yeah, I'd say so. So all that's left to say really is have a happy holiday season, and we will be back in the new year with a bunch more games.
It's it's nice to know that we actually still have an audience. So we will be back next year. The Retro Odyssey will return.
But yeah, so we will see you later. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
That wasn't Santa at all!